And so what is truthful listening as opposed to truthful speaking? You know, we all know what untruthful speaking is. It's a lie. It's like, you know, were you in that place at that time? No, Your Honor, I wasn't there. You know, okay, well, that's a fabrication, a deliberate falsification of the truth. That's an easy one to cut out. You just stop saying things that you know to be actually untrue. The next part of clearing up the game of and purifying our throat chakra is directing those ears and truly acknowledging what is within. Hey, I'm David and welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, I'm a sniper turned meditator, and I went on to found Kailash Ashram, which is a traditional meditation and yoga retreat in the Australian outback. On this channel, we share ancient yogic wisdom made relevant for modern times to help you slash through a lot of the nonsense that's out there in the spiritual scene. Help us share the love and bring peace to the world by pressing that like button. The algorithm really does like it, and if this is useful content for you, please consider subscribing and sharing this with your friends. In tonight's sharing, we cover the throat chakra and what it is to share practices and the way to do it so that you come across authentic you without being forceful or imposing. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Para Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. When I first started getting involved into the Himalayan meditation community, there was a real fervor that a lot of people had to share the practice, you know, whether or not it was being shared in a manner that was relatable to the culture that people found themselves in, maybe a little bit questionable in that regard. What do I mean by that? You know, yoga took hold first in India, ancient India, and so a lot of the culture is infused, or a lot of the culture infuses itself with the practice of the traditional yoga and meditation being a key practice. And so disentangling what is cultural and what's relevant to keep and which bits might bog you down can be... It's a bit of a treacherous journey at first. You don't know, like you just don't know what you don't know. And I was quite naive and just sponged in a lot of cultural stuff. And much of it, due to my own arrogance, I think, I pushed away. I thought, why do they have all of these silly words for concepts that are, you know, quite understood in the West? Like why are they retaining specific words? It's putting a barrier between me and elements of the practice. Surely this should be universal. Surely I don't need to have it communicated to me in another language. And much like last week where we unpacked some Sanskrit and saw that hidden inside, you know, sadhana, there is actually an indication for how that yogic activity should proceed. There's a word that I'd like to explore tonight, which is called prachar or prachara, and this word often is used in the context of spreading the message. So it's in Swamiji's organization in India, you know, many people, after having a profound shift of their own consciousness through a simple meditation practice, through being part of the community-based meditations once a week, they then decide, well, okay, what can I do to support this journey? Because I'm feeling good and I don't want it to just be about me. I'd love to circulate this further out into the community. And so the Indian expats, or the expats that I came across in Australia, used the word prachar. I heard it at the ashrams in India, prachar, and I'm like, it just means kind of banging on about the meditation, talking about meditation, sharing it with people. That's what prachar is. And so for a number of years, I'm talking like 6 years, I'm like, I just learned to associate that prachar meant sharing about the meditation. And Rajni and my journey of imparting meditation and sharing with people first really came about with that the desire to share something that had been useful for us. What we saw happening inside of the meditation community in India was that people were just very quick to go, well, Swamiji teaches meditation, so just go and listen to him. And everyone would be like, come and meet my guru. And so obviously the second you try and do that in Australia, it's like, I'm out of here. This sounds really weird. I don't want to have to meet someone else. If you can't explain it to me, why the hell should I go and listen to someone else? How much of it are you really into yourself? And so, very quickly, it never resonated with myself or Rajni that it was, okay, well, let's just siphon everybody off. Let's go and make them read Swamiji's teachings, make them go and listen to a discourse from him, and that'll all be everything fixed. So we thought, well, okay, if that doesn't resonate, what is our responsibility? And the guidance actually came on that issue from Swamiji in one of the discourses that Rajni and I were listening to. And what Swamiji shared was that you should yourself be a poster for that practice. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you do the practice and allow it to change you, and then you wear that. That changed self is actually the best marketing for these simple yogic practices. And so instead of going out and forcibly, trying to, hey, you should go and meditate. Hey, come and meet my guru, which is what we saw a lot of the Indian brothers and sisters kind of do a bit. It might kind of work in India where there's a little bit more of a cultural understanding around how spiritual practice is shared and that it comes from a living master and all of this kind of thing. But in the West, it really didn't work for us. Not that we really tried it. It didn't resonate with the depths of our being. So over a number of years, we started to wear that change as ourself, and naturally that drew people who were interested in learning about meditation and yoga to us. And then in those very organic connections, we would share what our experience had been. Now, obviously, that's heavily informed by the teachings and the kind of dance with the guru that we've gone through with Swami Shiv Krupanand, but it comes from a place of personal experience. And that's all at the end of the day we have to offer another human being in front of us, what we have experienced ourselves to be true, and then in the spirit of sharing that, not as a way to try and sign people up or convince people, but to be committed to a higher and a deeper value within. And so, for those that have been out here on retreat, you'll know, which I think everyone is, you'll know that the value that we're talking about at the throat chakra is very much truth. And truth is that thing that we express, which comes from such a deep place within that it resonates with what we deeply know. There's a sense of pure knowing when it is a truthful dialogue that comes out. And one of the qualities of the soul is of that purity of knowing, that deepest essence. So it's very difficult to put it in words. But when the sharing comes from that place, it is loaded with vibrations, for want of a better word. It's a bit kind of new agey, but it's loaded with a realness that is like a sword. It cuts through the fluff, and it cuts through the tendency to have our communication be about an agenda, truth for truth's sake, kind of like art for art's sake, not art to make $1 million, not truth to try to convince people, but truth that is spoken for the sake of truth itself. And there's not so many places that we can go in the modern world to get truth. There's a lot of political spin on even well-meaning and well-intentioned movements and campaigns and debates and politics and pros and cons to absolutely everything. But there's a very there's a corruptive aspect to a lot of people's communication. So when we probe deeper into the Sanskrit name for the throat chakra, Vishuddhi. Now Vishuddhi, Shuddhi. Remember, we did a chitta shuddhi yagya. It's purification. And so this is a strong seat of purity of speech. And when the speech comes from that place, it transmits something much deeper than just the facts and the technique of meditation. That we can give you in like 30 seconds. Right hand, top of the head, I'm a holy soul, I'm a pure soul, go forth and have a good time with it. For some people, that's what they're after. A lot of the time, though, what people I've found need to see is an embodiment of the courage to speak the truth, even in a difficult situation. And when one encounters an embodiment of somebody speaking that truth, maybe, being as honest as they possibly can be, it invariably gives permission for you and for me to be as truthful as that person in front of us. And so Swamiji himself was that for Rajni and I. There wasn't any technical instruction that he gave us that was like, wow, this is just like, I understand the mechanics of the mind. No, there was a lot of simple truths and kind of cryptic little stories, but there was just an authentic, honest man sharing his heart from his direct experience and talking about these strange encounters that had happened since embarking upon this journey of self-inquiry. And that, vibration, that disposition towards life, Rajni and I endeavour to hold at Kailash too, so that it is a place to come and get that reflection of like, wow, there's people who really are saying what they believe. Now, we're not there to share that so that you fawn all over us. I couldn't really care less what people think of me. Obviously, I hope that people are positively disposed towards me. I don't want to unnecessarily burden people with hating me for no good reason. But that permission to speak the truth, embodied by maybe the ashram here, gives the incentive and the courage for you to turn that truthful dialogue within. And whilst we're talking about the throat chakra, the organ of action is the tongue. So that's truthful communication. But in order to have something truthful to say, the organ of perception is the ears. The ears have to be directed in. And so what is truthful listening as opposed to truthful speaking? We all know what untruthful speaking is. It's a lie. It's like, were you in that place at that time? No, Your Honour, I wasn't there. Okay, well, that's a fabrication, a deliberate falsification of the truth. That's an easy one to cut out. You just stop saying things that you know to be actually untrue. The next part of clearing up the game of and purifying our throat chakra, it's directing those ears and truly acknowledging what is within. And that sensitivity to listen to the inner feelings is often, it's difficult. It's the element of space. It's a subtle realm, right, at the throat chakra. So giving ourselves space to hear what is arising is absolutely essential. And then, what I've discovered over the years of listening and quietly watching myself and watching me run away from difficult emotions is that a lot of my unconscious action in the world has its origins from not wanting to listen to what is really going on inside. And so the process of meditation, one of the great spiritual metaphors and one that I've heard Swamiji talk about, and one that I actually physically got to experience for the first time last night. So I was blown away that I got to experience this one. I've got a little ghee lamp, and around that ghee lamp is a protective piece of glass. And it was really cool when I got the brand new protective glass, because it's a lot less risk of me kind of self-immolating in the night if I'm using my ghee lamp next to the bed. But it was clean because it came from the factory and it was all pristine and it was nice. And now after a couple of months of me popping in and out this ghee lamp, there's ghee all over the glass. And so in the process of lighting that to read in bed before I go to sleep, what I saw was shadows on the wall that were from the impurity that had gone and contaminated that glass. And so Swamiji uses the metaphor of the kerosene lantern. I guess he's a little bit old school. I don't think we've seen a kerosene lantern in active duty in Australia for, a good few decades. But, some people decades older than me might remember them. Yeah, there we go. Just a couple of hands there. So, but the beautiful spiritual teaching inside the kerosene lamp, or for me, the ghee lamp by the bedside table, is that light, oh wow, I've lit up that light. Oh wow, I'm a soul, I'm a holy soul. And then pow, with the power of illumination, you begin to see the impurity around you, the stains on the kerosene lamp. And you're like, oh, I thought the light was meant to make it better. It does. But the process of making it better is sometimes illuminating the impurities. So having the courage to look at the physical impurities on the glass is just like having the courage to listen to the impurities that are circulating within. Well, what are those impurities? Well, they might just be simply ideas and thoughts or values or judgments that you hold against other people that are out of alignment with what you actually want to be. I'm not here saying you should have these values or not, but for instance, if you profess to be a loving person and then you direct the power of your witnessing and ears within, and you realize that you're hateful, it's like by your own standard, you're going to be at war with yourself. And you go, well, that's an impurity, is a lack of alignment with your own self-identified values. Now, I would believe that the values of love and truth and integrity are actually universal. That's my personal belief. Other people are free to work out what their values are for them, or whether or not they hold that to be true. But the feature of the meditative path is that it will illuminate the impurities so that you can clean them, or sometimes just recognizing the fact that, well, that's life. We eat food and we're full of shit. That's life. It's a part of the process. And so it can humble people coming back down to recognize that those impurities are there insofar, and what is shared in the meditation community and by Swamiji is that insofar as you have a body, there will always be the faults associated with the body. Okay, if you've got a reproductive system, one of the features of a reproductive system is going to be sexual attraction. And one of the excesses of sexual attraction is going to be lust. Okay, and that's not a bad thing, because the body has a nature and that element wants to go outward with its energy. It's just a part of life. So this yogic path of really cleaning our perceptual frame doesn't necessarily mean we need to push away this stuff or become puritanical. What it helps us do is see with clarity the truth of the human condition. And sometimes it's ugly. And learning to be okay with that ugliness is embodying a truth of like, okay, well, like, I'm not going to pretend like I don't have an ego and that it doesn't like compliments. That's the nature of the ego. It loves to have compliments. And so how this translates in my life is, before I used to think that was bad if I saw my ego surfacing. Oh no, I need to pull the ego down. Now I just go very directly to my loving wife and I'm like, my fragile ego, dear, needs some compliments. Can you tell me that I'm doing a good job from time to time? And Rajni is all too obliging, and she doesn't just kind of, yes, dear, there, you're doing a good job. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah, okay. Good work. People are enjoying what you're sharing, or what you're sharing is bringing something to people. Oh, okay, my ego is satisfied. The alternative to that is to, what I've seen unfortunately too often, is deny that one has an ego, deny that inner feeling, in that inner hearing that's like, oh, that ego needs attention, and going, no, that's not a part of me because I'm a soul now. And you push it away, and then snap, it comes back with a vengeance. And what's that seat of ego is at the fire element. And so when that fire element comes back, it can be, through control, imposition, and disturbance in the mind, most definitely. So once you begin that process of really listening to what's going on inside and acknowledging it and being with it and making those conscious choices to live in alignment with your own values, then we are ready for prachar, being the poster, sharing. Now, for some of you, that might be like a casual conversation with someone at the office when they're like, "You've changed in the last month. What's going on?" Or like, "Something's shifted. What's going on?" This is then an opening to begin to speak the truth. Well, I'm doing this thing where I sit down and I do this thing and I sit and it brings me something. And if you see the positive change, I see the positive change. So it must be working. You want to give it a go? Give it a go. And so this is prachar. This is carrying forward the teachings. It doesn't have to mean that you shave your head and become a monk and then receive some special initiation. The only authorization that you need to support the endeavor of sharing that love is to be at peace within and to have an open person before you. If there were no people in this Zoom room, I would still be sharing this because I'd be speaking directly to the camera. I'm like, well, that's what I made a commitment. I will show up every Tuesday night and I will share whatever stuff I'm working through for the purposes of, first of all, I love hearing it because it reminds me of the truth. And secondly, it feels good. There's just an inner joy that comes in sharing something that is more positive in the sea of quite tragic and difficult things in the world. Tonight, I looked a little bit more deeply into this word that I'd been using for 6 years that I just assumed meant like sharing. So I checked out prachar. Okay, prachar. What does prachar actually mean? And you look up the definition, and the first one is a bit scary. Propaganda. I'm like, let's scrub past that definition. Propaganda doesn't feel right. It's, then in the deeper context, it's like, well, it's dissemination of ideas and teachings. And that really didn't fit. And as most of you know, you can break Sanskrit down further to understand what's going on. And pra as a sound means onward. So it's carrying on or moving forward, pra. Ka or cha is the moon, Chandra, but it's also Shiva. So Ka is an epithet, it's one of the names and an invocation of Shiva, which is consciousness. So we are moving forward consciousness. And then Ra, the final sound, some of the definitions, there's a big list in many dictionaries on each of these sounds, but some of the ones that jumped out: love, heat, giving. Ra is also the seed syllable, so the bij or the seed syllable for the Nabi chakra. So that's the element of fire. So when we link that together, it's the onward movement or the onward loving movement of Shiva, of consciousness. And so, like when I realized that, I'm like, oh, prachar. That's what it is to continue forward this tradition, which is not a scholarly tradition. It's not one that no one's going to come down and ordain you, or you're not going to be able to go over to India and become ordained inside of this tradition. But you will all find, if you persist with the practice, that prachar is a very natural step of the journey, a natural desire to share that love of consciousness that begins to flow from within. Loose link, but not, maybe entirely irrelevant. Preacher and preaching. Prachar, preach. There's in the etymology that I looked up, there isn't anything that explicitly connects those two, other than pra or pray means before in Latin. And predicare means to proclaim, but phonically there's a similarity there, and Sanskrit and Latin share a root ancestor of a language. So this notion of preaching, it gets a bit of a bad rap in modern times because it's, oh, he's a bit preachy, he's kind of espousing some fire and brimstone or some values or something highfalutin. But the essence of preaching, well, the essence of prachar is the carrying forward of consciousness. And so if you truly believe yourself to be a soul, and you truly believe that the other souls or the other beings in front of you are souls, my belief is that we have a moral duty to carry forward that knowledge that has worked with us in the spirit of genuine compassion for them. And that's the flow of consciousness, and it's not so personal. You get to be a part in that journey, and hopefully what has been given to you begins to flow into those people who are receptive in front of you. And then from those people, it will flow continually like a river through history. And so this river of consciousness, or this thread of consciousness that weaves humanity over the ages, is what we're a part of at the moment. And being a participant or bathing in that long flowing river of consciousness is soothing to the soul on such a deep level that it is its own reward. One need not do this for any other reason than it just kind of polishes consciousness. It scrubs you up. And prachar itself, that journey of allowing whatever's got to come from you out into the world, nothing, as I share at the throat chakra, nothing clears the dodgy garden pipe than just flushing the water out and letting it keep running. Even if the crap is there, trust me, after a couple of years of water, it will be clear. Don't be worried about, global warming or running out of water. We're talking about consciousness here. And so please allow yourself that space if it has been a bit clunky, or if there is a seed that's germinating of a desire to go forward and support others with this. You don't need to wait for a qualification to do it. You just need to have that willingness to share your heart and soul with whoever's before you, and trust that it will carry them as it's carried you. Certainly has carried me, and I pray that that this spirit carries you forward, and to not blame me and Rajni for giving it to you, because we're only going to blame Swamiji and hand it back up, and he's only going to push it up to his own guru too. So rather than ascribing external praise to others, to sit in acknowledgement of your own soul as calling forward that consciousness is a sense of gratitude to the deeper self. So in that spirit of being grateful for the grace of our own soul on this journey, I invite you to take a seat and get ready for meditation. It's been lovely seeing you all again. Thank you for your attention, and I hope tonight's video brought you something. I say Jayat Meshwa, which means victory to your soul as divine. If you'd like to learn more about the traditional yoga and meditation practices that we share, simply check out the description where there's plenty of links to get you started on your journey online or out here at the ashram in person on retreat. Look forward to seeing you next week. Jayat Meshwa, be sure to subscribe. See ya.